Hello everyone, today we are going to discuss about a very important topic that's called Industrial Revolution. Before starting, let us get a brief idea of the contents that we are going to discuss today. Firstly, we will be discussing about the meaning and the background of Industrial Revolution and what were the causes for this Industrial Revolution to happen and why specifically in Britain this Industrial Revolution occurred. Then we will be discussing about the consequences which are positive and the negative aspects of this Industrial Revolution, and then afterwards we will be discussing how the introduction of railways and industrial revolution helped each other. Then we will be discussing at last about the conclusions or the law reforms that happened during this industrial revolution time period. So let us understand the background of industrial revolution. It was George Michelet who used this term industrial revolution in French language for the first time, and Friedrich Engels was the first person who used this term industrial revolution in German language. And but if we discuss about in English language, it was Arnold Toynbee who used this industrial revolution term for the first time in English language, and the dates coincided with the reign of the George III at the time of Arnold Toynbee's time period, which is between 1852 to 1883. Also, in this whole session, we will be discussing in a specific time period which is between 1780 to 1850, and this whole is called as first industrial revolution. Now let us understand the meaning of industrial revolution. It refers to the great change in the field of industries when the production of goods by hand were replaced with the help of machines in factory. Basically the production was done by hand, but now it was replaced with the help of machines in factories and industries, and this phenomenon is known as industrial revolution. So what were the causes? The first cause was economic factor, which means that there was a remarkable growth between this time period in the country in the sectors of cotton and iron industries, coal mining, building of roads, canals, and in foreign trades. Basically, in this flowchart, you can see there were so many inventions that helped all these sectors to grow significantly in this time period. Now, political factors. Basically, in the reign of George III, there was a political stability, which means that there were no internal wars or inflation of economy at that time, due to which there was a political stability, and hence the investors who invested money or the businessmen who invested their business were safe, and there was no such drastic change which could affect the economy or the inflation of that country at that time. Now let us understand the geographic factors. Basically, in 17th century, Wales, Scotland were unified with Britain, and at that time London became the largest city as well as the city of the global trade. Also, there was colonies in Asia, Africa, Europe. For example, in India, Britishers used to bring the raw material from for industries in Britain and use that raw material to create the product, and then that product was again sold in these colonies at a higher profit. Also, at that time, Mediterranean ports of Italy and France were replaced to the Atlantic ports of the Holland and Britain. As you can see here, there is so many coastal area, there is availability of good coastal areas, and hence the seaway trade was possible, and this is the reason why the ports were transported from Mediterranean to the Atlantic ports, and the Britain became the largest city of the global trade at that time. Okay, so let us understand why specifically this industrial revolution occurred in Britain. Basically, there was political stability, which means that there was great domestic and international market under its control, under England's control, and hence it helped industrial revolution. Also, in towns, there was a significant increase in the population and area at that time, and there was also a problem with this, that there was problem of sanitation or problem of lack of housing problem, and all this included in towns, and basically the population was increased in that time period in cities. And there was Bank of England that was founded in 1694, which helped the investors at that time to invest their money for industries, and as we have already discussed, there was increase in or growth in the sectors like coal and iron at that time. And basically, let us understand how the population in towns increased. It was because of the agriculture revolution. Basically, agriculture revolution means that there used to be a phenomenon that the farmers used to farm in smaller areas, but now they started to acquire the community lands, And by community lands, it meant that they started farming on a larger scale, due to which the landless farmers were forced to move to the towns, and hence we can say that there was increase in population at that time. All right, let us discuss about the consequences. The first consequence is there was invention of lot of machines, but the most important machines that were invented at that time were the in the cotton industry. There was mule, power loom, and as in this graph you can see how the time period is given for different invention. Basically there were so many inventions, but it is not feasible for us to get the list of all those inventions here. And there was increase in production because due to the machines, newly introduced machines or the inventions, there was increase in population, sorry, production. And next there was change, like basically there was a huge profit for the investors who invested their money. Basically their investment money was actually multiplied at that time. Also there was huge population at that time, as we have discussed in London. But yeah, along with it there came so many problems like housing, sanitation, cleanliness, or the clean water to drink and whatnot. And there was class structure, like for the bourgeoisie class or the non-bourgeoisie class, or class structure includes like the laborers firm or the workers firms in factories, or the businessmen, etc., etc. And there was also a gender inequality decrease at that time, because women were now working with the men, along with men at that time. And hence there was a greater social increase in equality. And let us discuss about the consequences, other consequences for the introduction of railways and canal. Railways took the industrialization to second stage. This is because at that time railways helped to bring the raw material from one place to another, and help the factories to create better production easily and in less time. Also Thomas Harvey built the miners friends model steam engine in 1698, and first English canal in 1761 was built by James Brindley. Basically these all are different inventions that occurred in that time, and helped these railways and canals and industrial revolution on a whole scale. Now let us discuss about the condition of workers. Basically the working conditions were very bad. There was victims of restlessness, epidemics, diseases, housing problems. Livelihood was not easy to maintain in cities, and hence the condition of workers were harsh. And also there was employment of women, and there was employment children in industries, and they were forced to work because factory managers considered child labor to be the important training for future factory work, because children's were taken as an investment for future factory work. And also the wages of women and children were not equal to men. Also let us discuss about the consequences, the negative consequences, which are protest movements at that time. That there were so many that at that time the working conditions were harsh for the workers, and hence there were protest movements. Also there was a concept of Luddism. It was led by General Ned Ludd, and basically in these participants demanded a minimum wage, control over labor of women, children, work for those who had lost their jobs. And basically it included all the working conditions should be reformed significantly, and this was the demand of the Luddism concept. And the result was that government was forced to introduce some of the factory laws for the women and children, and improve the quality of the working conditions of the workers. And also through Act of 1833 more children were put to work in coal mines. But also there were protests at that time. Basically there was disability for the workers at that time. And the outcomes, let us discuss about the outcomes of the reforms. Basically laws were passed in 1819 prohibiting the employment of children under the age of 9 in factories, limiting the work hours between 12 days a hour. And also there was Mine and Collieries Act in 1842, which banned children under 10 and women for working underground. Basically women and children were not physically able to work underground, but they were forced. But this law made them to not work, and banned the child and women employment under underground works. And there were 10 hours bills which said that the working hours for a day for a worker should be not more than 10. And there was Factory Act in 1847, which prohibited children and women from working more than 10 hours a day. And in 18th century England witnessed agriculture revolution and the process of enclosure. And basically these were some of the reforms that were done to help the workers at that time. And by now we conclude our session, and I hope you all have a good day. Thank you very much.